She was found clutching a pencil. 5 words above her read, "Tell my mom I was brave." The town had moved on. The truth hadn't. But what happened next will shock you. First, let's go back to the beginning. The wind moved like breath held too long, then finally exhaled across the surface of Lake Verona, rippling the thin skin of water that masked whatever truths lay beneath. On the morning Sarah and Lily vanished, the lake had been uncharacteristically calm, unnaturally so, Kevin Dwyer would later say. No bird calls, no buzzing flies, not even the restless chitter of squirrels in the trees. Just silence, the kind that seeps under your skin and whispers warnings you don't know how to hear until it's too late. Sarah Miller had arrived early, her beat-up Subaru kicking gravel in the empty lot as dawn yawned awake behind the hills. Lily bounced out first, rainbow sneakers crunching against the frost-bitten ground, her fishing rod nearly as tall as she was. Sarah followed, carrying the tackle box and thermos, her face tired but lit with the kind of quiet joy that only bloomed on these mornings when the world felt small enough to love again. No one knew precisely when they launched. The bait shop owner, George, recalled them buying worms and a bottle of orange soda around 6:30 a.m. He remembered Lily asking if turtles ever swallowed hooks, and Sarah laughing, saying, "That's why we use the small ones, honey." Harmless. Ordinary. The kind of memory that only sticks once it turns to ash. A pair of weekend fishermen remembered waving from a distance around 9 a.m. The sun was high, bouncing light off the water like diamonds spilled across a mirror. Sarah and Lily's boat drifted not far from the eastern ridge. Nothing strange. Nothing wrong. And then, gone. 3 days later, search crews found the boat washed against a tangle of reeds, half submerged, like it had simply grown tired of floating. The oars were still inside. So were the worms. The life vests, dry and unused, lay folded neatly beneath the seats. The tackle box sat unopened. And most disturbing of all, the boat bore no signs of damage. Not a gouge, not a crack. Just emptiness, as though it had never held anyone at all. Locals tried to make peace with it. Tragic accident, they said. Freak gust. Maybe a seizure. Could have been anything. But Kevin Dwyer watched that lake every day, and he knew something wasn't right. You don't just disappear like that. Not from Verona. Not without a sound. Not without a trace. Something had taken them, and the lake, quiet, silver, unmoved, was keeping its mouth shut. Until now. The bag was waterlogged, yellowed at the seams, and wrapped with the kind of care that spoke of desperation. Kevin Dwyer spotted it just past the cattails, caught in the gentle clutch of a submerged branch. It bobbed not like garbage, but like something that refused to sink, something that had waited. He waded in knee-deep, boots filling with cold muck, hands trembling before they even touched it. A fisherman knows when he's hauling in more than he bargained for. He laid the bag on the bank like it was alive, unwrapped it with calloused fingers. Mud peeled away from plastic. Inside was a notebook, a cheap, spiral-bound sketchpad, the kind you'd find in any second-grade classroom. He opened it slowly. The first pages were innocent. Stick figures, clumsy trees, animals with square heads and looping tails, a son wearing sunglasses, a girl, arms wide, standing next to a taller woman with curly hair and a big smile. Mommy and Me was written in block letters. Then it changed. Drawing after drawing of a cabin, crude but obsessive. Same structure, always from the same angle. Slanted roof, one boarded window, a door with a symbol etched into it, a crooked Z encircled in heavy black crayon. Page after page, the same cabin, as if the act of redrawing it might somehow erase it from memory. or burn it into someone else's. And beneath one of the final sketches, in childlike print, "This is where he took us." Kevin didn't realize he was crying until the salt reached his tongue. This wasn't imagination. This was a record. A testimony rendered in waxy strokes and desperate detail. He could feel the fear in every line. Lily's need to be found, even if she knew she wouldn't be. He drove straight to the sheriff's office, journal in one hand, heart pounding like war drums. Colton barely looked up when Kevin burst through the door. The sheriff was a man whose belt said law, but whose eyes said re-election. Kevin slammed the sketchbook down. "You need to reopen the case." Colton flipped through the pages with a politician's disinterest. "Could be from years ago. Could have washed down from another lake. Let's not stir things up without proof." "That little girl is the proof." But Colton had already closed the folder, closed the file, closed the door. Kevin left seething. If the system wouldn't listen, he'd go around it. At home, he laid out decades-old forestry maps, traced the lake's border with the tip of a knife. Dozens of structures dotted the woods, ghost cabins long forgotten. All but one meant nothing. Cabin 32, Northern Ridge. The one no one spoke about. The one with the mark. The climb was slow, deliberate. Kevin Dwyer's boots crushed dead pine needles and snapped brittle twigs that hadn't been disturbed in years. The path wasn't a trail anymore, just the memory of one, half swallowed by decades of moss and indifference. But he followed it, compass in hand, map creased and faded like the skin on his knuckles. The coordinates were precise. His breath came in short, sharp bursts as the incline stiffened. The wind, colder now, hissed through the tall trees in long, slithering gusts that never broke into sound. Just tension, invisible and tight, as if the forest itself was holding something in. No birds, no chatter, not even squirrels. Just silence, unnatural and watchful. When he saw the cabin, it was like seeing a scar the woods had tried to grow over. The roof sagged in the middle. One shutter hung like a broken jaw. The wood had grayed with age, warped in places, but the foundation held. Someone had cared about keeping it standing. And then he saw it, carved into the beam above the door, the symbol from Lily's drawings. The crooked Z inside a circle, rough, deep, fresh enough that the grooves hadn't yet filled with rot. Kevin stepped forward like the air might snap if he moved too quickly. The door didn't creak. It yawned open with a soft push, as if it expected him. The smell hit first. Mildew, urine, old meat. Inside, dust floated in solid sheets where light pierced through the gaps in the roof. Against the far wall, canned beans stacked neatly beside dented boxes of powdered milk. A tangle of molded blankets in the corner, crusted and flattened by time. A bucket, stained dark. Then, his eyes caught it. A small pink backpack, worn at the straps. The name Lily in black Sharpie still legible on the front. He moved slowly, his knees locking, jaw clenched against something rising in his throat. Then he saw the chain. It was bolted to the far wall, thick, rusted, heavy. A cracked plastic bracelet still dangled from the cuff, pink with white stars, designed for a child's wrist. Kevin's breath shattered. He staggered backward out the door and collapsed to his knees behind a tree. He vomited hard and dry, the sound of it lost to the cold wind curling through the clearing. He didn't wait. He went home, loaded the photos, typed the coordinates, and sent it all. To the FBI, to the state police. No explanations, just facts, sharp and undeniable. And they came. Dogs, trucks, quiet men in windbreakers and latex gloves. They moved like surgeons, cutting the truth from the woods piece by piece. Hours later, a name surfaced. Vincent Stokes, 56. A ghost who once wore the uniform of a school maintenance man. Fired under the radar after Sarah Miller filed a complaint, not enough to charge, just enough to remove. He vanished after that. No forwarding address, no inquiries made. Until now. At his trailer, they found what they weren't ready for. Lily's shoes, Sarah's silver necklace, a collage of newspaper clippings pinned to the walls, each one focused on the same two people. Drawings, class schedules, a journal with Sarah's name written over and over. Vincent had been watching them, long before the lake, long before the boat. He knew their rhythms, their silences, their plans. He'd taken his secrets with him. 2 days later, they found him, hanging by a frayed belt in a root cellar beneath the cabin. The lock was on the inside. They found her curled in the corner of a narrow wooden closet, behind a panel that had to be unscrewed from the outside. The space was barely wide enough for a child to sit, let alone breathe. Her bones were light, delicate scaffolding wrapped in the remnants of what once was a red hoodie, faded to rust. But her hand, even in death, had not let go of the pencil. The closet walls told the story in soft, ghosted graphite. Lily had drawn not to pass time, but to mark it. Small hatch marks ran in tight clusters beneath one windowless slat, counting, days, maybe, or attempts to stay awake. Around them bloomed shaky images, a tree with no leaves, a sun hidden behind clouds, her mother's face, drawn again and again until the pencil dulled. One sketch showed a woman's hand holding a child's. That hand was drawn carefully, with thick fingers and little hearts on the fingernails. Mom's hands was scribbled beneath in tired letters. And then, at the very top of the back wall, just beneath the exposed beam, came her final offering, written in strokes that pressed hard into the wood, carving desperation into permanence. "If someone finds this, tell my mom I was brave." No one could speak when they read it. Not the agents, not the coroner. Even Kevin Dwyer, who'd seen death in war and silence in peacetime, turned his face and wept. Sarah's body was never found. Maybe she tried to run. Maybe she died fighting. Maybe the lake took her too, swallowing her final scream beneath the reeds. But what became clear, undeniably, heartbreakingly clear, was that Lily had lived beyond her, lived for days, chained in darkness, afraid and starving, but still drawing, still writing, still believing someone might come, that someone would come. And someone did. After the arrests, after the searches, after the headlines faded, the town did what small towns rarely do. It looked inward. Sheriff Colton resigned, his legacy reduced to a footnote of failure. A memorial was held by the lake, not the polished kind with speeches and cameras, but raw and communal. Locals brought paper boats, flowers, tiny candles that floated on the water like stars drifting too far from the sky. Kevin stood at the edge, holding a wreath he'd woven from lake grass and pine boughs. He said nothing at first. Then, as he let it slip onto the surface, he whispered, "For the ones we didn't listen to, and the ones we will, from now on." As he turned to leave, a heron glided in from the trees, landing silently on the old dock. It stood tall, poised, facing the water like a sentinel. Then it lifted its wings, great, pale things, and soared into the golden sky. Kevin watched it go. The wind shifted, the lake rippled, not silent, not anymore.